Hello, welcome to the Trench Rescue Waler Systems webinar or video in this segment. I'm Nigel Letherby, the training manager for Paratech Incorporated. I'm going to go over the Waler. We'll see a couple of different things, what the Walers will do. I'll try to explain a couple of different ways what the Walers are actually in the trench for, and we'll go from there. So just to start, this is not a PowerPoint. This is a PowerPoint presentation, and it is for informational purposes only. It's not a substitute for hands-on training taught by a qualified instructor. Regular hands-on training is necessary to become proficient. Improper use of any equipment may cause serious injury or death. Think safe, act safe, be safe. Okay, to start, this is the components for the Waler system. We got 6-foot rails, 8-foot rails, connectors and stop blocks. In the Waler system, we got 4 6-foot Waler rails, 4 8-foot Waler rails, 4 Waler connectors, and 16 stop blocks. That comprises the kit. Looking at the Waler tabulated data, the top graph or the chart explains what the aluminum Waler does in comparison to the woods that's offered. As you see, the Paratech Waler's load percentage is 100%. Douglas fir 4x4 is 7% of load. Oak 4x4 is 4% of load. Douglas fir 6x6 is 27%. Douglas fir 8x8 is 66%, and so on and so forth. The Paratech Waler strength and safety factor. Douglas fir, the safety factor with the Paratech Waler compared to Douglas fir is 14.3%, and so on as you go down the table with the different woods. This was comprised all on facts based on the web. Our engineers went to the sites where they actually make and form the wood from different lumber, and what they had for different stresses and different load factors in axial and everything else, and they comprised this table. Later, we did a test on the Walers, and we can go into a little bit further on that, where maybe with the advanced trench, where the advanced trench will be done by Ron Zalocki out of M.U.S.A.R Trench Foundation. And what will happen is then you go more into detail of what the Walers did with different woods and also LVLs, laminated beams, and what the safety factors and the strengths are. Some of the accessories that we have with the Trench Rescue, we've got a new trench control kit. As you see there, you got a controller, regulator, some distribution modules, and a series of hoses that fit in a Pelican case. The other things we have are inside and outside thrust blocks. The small one with the 2 cups and the silver anchor ring, that's your inside thrust block. And the other one with the 3 cups on is your outside thrust block. Also, we got the L Trench adapter kit. If you take a look, you'll see it's the cups we use for our Raker systems, along with a 1-inch, basically it's a rigid strut, or you can call it a 1-inch nipple. That's fine, doesn't make a difference. Also, we carry 48-inch pickets, 1-inch pickets, 48 inches long. Okay, connecting the whales. If you take a look at the Waler connector, we've got a series of 8 pins in the Waler connector. The 4 end ones, I should say, should be in the in position. If you take a look at the top left hand, the one with the red circles, those pins, you pull them in towards the center of the connector, push them up, and they lock into place on both sides. So when you're first putting the Waler connector into the Waler rail, the first 2 pins will slide in because they're already in. Then you'll take the second series of pins, you'll bring them into the center of the connector until it gets into the rail. Once it gets into the rail, you let the pins go. Then you slide the Waler connector up the rail. It locks into the 2 holes. Then you release the 2 first pins so the pins actually lock into the first 4 holes of the Waler rail. Once that's done, you do exactly the same thing with the other rail. The rail on the bottom right-hand corner it's attached to one. Now we place in the second Waler rail into position. Again, you're going to slide the Waler rail up until it makes contact with the second series of pins. You'll bring the pins into the center of the Waler connector. You'll slide the Waler in a little bit further till the pins are inside. You'll push it all the way in. Them two will lock into place. Then you'll go and lock the outer pins or the first 2 pins into the other holes. So you're going to have eight pins engaged in 8 holes in the Waler connector. Now for the video.
Retracting that, okay? Now as I start to slide this in the end of my whale, right, that'll slide and get started. Now I'm going to retract these until that locks in, and then I can engage those. Next,
we need to offset the Waler connector. If you take a look at the 2 pictures we've got, we found with testing, we've tested with the Waler connector dead center on that panel as you see there in the T-trench. And we did a test with the Waler connector dead center, and we did a test with the Waler connector offset, as you see here. We found that the Waler is a lot stronger with the connector offset than dead on the center of that panel where the push may occur. Offset at least a foot, I should say, at least a foot, you offset that connector, and try to offset them, offset. If you take a look at the right-hand picture, what I mean by that is I've got the top Waler with the connector offset to the left of the center panel, and I've got the bottom Waler connector offset to the right of the center panel. That way, all the strength is going to be spread out across those panels rather than the weakness being the connectors are on one panel, and you may end up lose a load with the push from the dirt. Next thing we're going to have are connecting the L-trench adapter kit. If you take a look at the picture on the left, we've got the 2 Raker latch bases in the Waler rails, and the 1-inch rigid strut just sitting there. So you're going to put the 2 latch base connectors in the outer holes. Then you're going to place the rigid strut into the one, then bring the other one up alongside, stand them on edge, then put the other cup into the rigid strut. That way it keeps the rails nice and square for when you're going to put the thrust blocks into place. Problem is with the outside thrust block, there's not a lot of tolerance there where that block goes into those rails. So the rails need to be kept as square as possible, so you don't run into problems where the outside thrust block won't fit into one rail because it's too offset from the other rail. Now we'll see the video of that going together.
So what we've got here is one of our 1-inch rigid struts. What we're going to do today is we're going to use this to tie together our 2 Waler rails so that as those Waler rails are pressurized in an L-trench, they resist any forces that might move them apart. So what we're going to do is we're going to take them here, place them in our cups on the Waler rails themselves, bring them together. Lock it into position, and that's it. It's that simple.
If you take a look at the picture on the left, it shows the bottom Waler is in place, or they actually bringing it into place. When you place your bottom Waler in, the bottom Waler needs to go in first before any of the struts go in. That way you're not trying to feed the Waler through struts to put it into place. By placing the bottom Waler in, you may have to place the bottom Waler and also the center Waler, depending on the depth of the trench. So you're going to place it in, you're going to shoot your your temporary shoring. Once your temporary shoring is shot, you're going to bring your whaler up to the desired position. You're going to lower your strut down with the thrust block on, or the inside thrust block on, and you're going to shoot the whale on the panels. If you take a look at the picture on the right, the whale is being shot with the 2 struts, and it's got the 2 struts around the corner on the other side of the leg. When you do this, you don't have to use stop blocks in these whaler rails. If you're shooting struts into the rail itself, as you see there. The only time where you're going to use stop blocks is if we want to build a system outside the trench and lower in as one. If you take a look at the bottom, we see the aluminum whaler, Paratech whaler there with the struts actually shot on the whale, and the L trench adapter in place, so it's keeping the whale nice and level and square. Placing the outside thrust block with the struts. If you take a look, we've got our whaler together. We've got the outside thrust blocks. You're going to attach the struts to the outside thrust block. Then you're going to lower the whole thing with the outside thrust block and the 2 struts into place as one. It's easier to put 2 ropes on the outside thrust blocks so you can control it than 1 rope on each strut as it's going down. If you take a look at this picture, we've got the picture where the strut is in place in that outside thrust block. If you turn that strut around and put the collar side into the outside thrust block, it'll make it a little bit easier. The reason being is because where the collar is situated on that strut, there's 4 locating holes in there. And on the other side of the strut, it's just got the ridge or the groove that's in there. If we turn that around, when we lower this into place, then we can put this all together using air pressure to lock it into the inside thrust block. With the groove there, it doesn't make a difference. As long as it goes in the cup, the lock pin is going to lock into place. But with the 4 locating holes, you've got to manually twist the strut so the lock pin finds that hole and locks into place. Once you put it into place, you can shoot it across to the inside thrust blocks. But remember, if I shot my 2 struts on the outside of these whales in each leg at 200 psi each, as long as I'm using the same color strut, which is the Acme thread strut you see here, I can shoot that at 50% pressure at 100 psi. Then it will stop that panel from trying to go down that trench under air pressure. The other thing you can do with the inside thrust block, it's got that anchor ring, and we can put a strap from one anchor ring to the other to hold it in place. Then we can shoot that diagonal to its full 200 psi pressure. If you take a look at the picture, you'll see it all in place with the diagonal set in. This is the old traditional L trench, where you got your horizontals, your diagonals. The newer way of doing this is to eliminate those diagonals and just put the struts closer to the corner. That we are looking into with the M.U.S.A.R Training Foundation, because as you know, the M.U.S.A.R Training Foundation does a lot of tests up there. They test systems, and we do listen to what they've got to say, because I would say they are the best in the business, and we will rectify the problems and adapt to what we need to adapt. Place in the Waler stop blocks with the base. If you take a look at the top left-hand picture, we got the Waler rail, we got a base, and we got 2 stop blocks. Next picture over, you place a stop block in place. Then you put the base in, slide the base as far as it'll go under that stop block. Then you put the other stop block in. It prevents that base from coming out and moving around. Like I say, I only do this if I'm building a system on the outside of the trench and loading the whole system in as one. There are applications where you're going to need it, where you will see pictures a little bit further down the line, where you will see that we've created a square of whales going in and to create a big hole. The other time we use wales is if we want to create space to get our victim out, where we can remove the center struts and create a hole. So now my struts are actually 8 foot on center instead of 4. Create that hole so I can actually get a Stokes basket down and retrieve the victim that's in the trench. Here is where we are building a system on the outside of a trench. If you take a look, we've got 2 gold struts in place, locked in with stop blocks. Then we can lower this into the trench. As you see, this is a horse in a trench in a hole. We need a lot of space so we can get that horse out of that hole, out of that trench, using our bipod. So we lowered systems in, like you see on the left-hand side. We lowered one in, we lowered another one in at the bottom, so we create the 2 basically horizontal directional struts. Then we did the same at the top, 4 foot in between. So we're actually in the parameters of that 4 foot. Now we're able to go down in place, harness the horse, and bring the horse out of that hole. The other things we do using the gold struts, and a lot of you haven't seen this, is the Excavation Raker. This is basically for an end wall situation. It's hard to shore up an end wall. Why? We've seen where they've connected the horizontal struts and just attaching something then straight to the end wall. But the problem is with that, if that end wall gave way, the struts are not strong enough under air pressure and locked out to stop those panels from going down that trench. So with the M.U.S.A.R Training Foundation, they found the best way to attack an end wall is putting an excavation raker in there. And as you see, we use we use 2 panels. We bolt the whalers to the panels. We make the excavation raker on the outside using braces. And if you take a look at the left-hand picture with all the ropes, the raker is actually lowered in with munter hitches, lowered into place, and it's actually pinned to the ground and pinned to the wall. Again, looking at this, with Ron Zalocki doing the advanced class in January, he'll most probably go into a little bit of detail on how they use the excavation raker to support an end wall. And this is another use for the whalers that we do that's in the trench rescue field. The next one is, you've seen this in earlier webinars, is the slope floor. If you take a look at the picture all the way to the right, where the slope floor already attached, you see we're using the raker rails there. The raker rails is not a rated rail. So basically, we need padding under each point of contact, or headers and soles behind those rails. But if you take a look at the raker rails, they're a lot thicker, a lot stronger rail. The Waler rail is actually rated. So with that, you can still use a header, or you can still use plywood on top and bottom, but we don't have to pad out the base of the strut using a Waler rail. Again, this is an example of a slope floor, as you see there. You see, we got 2 pictures. We got one brace going one way, one brace going the other way, which you're supposed to have. So you can actually see an X going through, looking through either side of that slope floor. Next application we've got the Waler rails in place in a T-trench. The one on the left is just your standard Waler going across, sandwiching the center panel. And the one on the right is we've got 2 sets of whales going in there. That's because the leg of the T is a lot wider than is necessary for shoring up. If it's over the 6 foot or 8 foot span, then another strut needs to be put in place So if you take a look at that one strut is actually on the two whales and making contact with the whale going down the leg. So we can actually support that trench doing that with the different Waler systems. These are adjustable whale hangers from M.U.S.A.R. M.U.S.A.R come up with this, and basically, if you take a look what the actual things are, they're actually pipe clamps that's been modified, where you can hang on the panel itself. The red one in the middle is the hanger. You can hang that on the panel. And the other ones will go down in the trench, a series of them. And if you take a look at the picture on the right, you can do the measurement and set them in place so you can actually rest the whales on them and shoot in against the panels. That way, it saves a lot of headaches with picketing the ropes back with the heavy whales on, hooking into place, keeping them level. So you can just lower them down. It's already level, and you do what you need to do by shooting them against the panels. That's just something M.U.S.A.R have come up with. If you got any questions on this, ask Ron Zalocki at the Trench Advanced in January. He'd be more than happy to share some information on what he did, how he did it, and where he gets these from. Again, that's all I've got for the Waler, for the Paratech Waler system. If you have any questions, don't forget to ask your questions on the right-hand side on the chat. Our guys will be there, and we'll be here for a little while after this finishes to answer any questions you've got. Again, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching our webinars throughout this year. 2020 has been a difficult year for everybody. So I'd like to thank you all for participating and donating your time to watch these webinars, and I hope you've got something from them. Again, my name is Nigel Letherby. I'm the training manager for Paratech. Thank you, and I hope you all have a very Merry Christmas.